Good afternoon and most welcome to age 742. We are currently here in the little village of Vårgårda, about 70 kilometers from Gothenburg. That will be, I think, the equivalent of 35 English miles. We are having a cold spell today. It's about 5 minus. And we are looking forward to some snowfall, if I saw the sky correctly. I would talk, speaking about seeing and perceiving, I would today talk about sensomotoric rehabilitation. And we've come up with an idea, and I looked into the neurological database yesterday and today to find some material, and the main point is to see how you go from state 2 to state 1. And state 2 is the neurons and muscular groups 2, the fast twitch muscles, the one connected to direct reaction and the flight and fight reaction. I will henceforth use the acronym ST2 and ST1 for convenience, but that means N2, T2, respectively T1, N1. And the idea is, what can we do from the side we're already in? I'm trying to figure out, we are in the state of ST2, but from within that state, what can you use? What tools can you apply to sort of help the rehabilitation process? And we know, I mentioned that before, volition is a dangerous thing when it comes there. If I want to do something, if I use my will to change anything in my system, that will start the ST2. And that we learn from this Quest for Space by Jan Eiskens, how astronauts, because they were forced to use their will to change their normal reactions, their natural reactions, they developed Burnout Syndrome. And the reason for that being they were not living in gravity. And just using the will is enough to start this process. It's when we're interfering with our natural reactions. But if you are in ST2, your reactions are no longer natural. So it will not be a risk to use volition. But still, volition will start the ST2. So we need to go around this thing very carefully. And there is an expression in Sweden that is used very much now in these times where people eat porridge. And that is, walk around the porridge, hot porridge, like cat. This is what we need to do, and we need to use the will somehow, otherwise we won't get anywhere. But we need to be very specific what we do use our will for. We cannot tell ourselves to too often or directly relax, lengthen, direct yourself. We need to be rather careful with that. That creates a specific thinking that is more in this area. But we need to understand this is a graded scale.
6, number 6.
That's a graded scale. Sorry about the interruption. I am waiting on the queue for the doctor. I will make a short pause here soon. So what can we do? Well, in shorthand, what we could do is we could stop with the things that we actually can control. And then I'm speaking in a general matter of gross things. obvious things. Things, for instance, if you're an alcoholic, you can stop going to the pub. That's a good start. Anybody can stop going to the pub, almost everybody. And that will lead you into getting rid of alcoholism. In this case, it's more difficult in one way, because volition is the thing we want to change. When it comes to the alcoholic, the only thing you want to change is the dependence on an external drug. What can we stop? This is I'm trying to comprehensively explain after the break here, but it would be rules of thumb that need to be taken seriously, but you need to put them in consideration. What can you do yourself? So we need to look carefully what we could do with our will that is easily controllable, and regarding gross movement, big movements. And these are movements that should be visible, well, preferably visible to other people. Some of them can be minor, minute. For instance, movement that taking place inside the tongue. Also, if you have your hands in your pockets. So there is also difference which part of the body we are including. The hand is the more decisive part than the rest of the body. Therefore, the hand we need to be extra careful with. We have more neural cells in the hand than any other part of the body. So minute tensions or things we do with our hand, we need to be extra careful with. And the hand is also a good instrument, because when I now relax my hand, I directly notice the tensions I have in my knee, because it's an immediate connection here. And this is also a good demonstration to what I want to accomplish. By stopping tension in different parts at the same time, we reach a state of more balanced attitude. And that's a much more, it's a better foundation for the treatment. This is on the daily basis, nothing particularly, but it gives a foundation, a sort of wet bed for further growth. And things to absolutely avoid is also very good. I would mention those things, because that will aggravate the system incredibly much, and will take a long time before the system is in a homeostasis enough for sort of have any good result from the treatment or the method, the training. So I will start with a list here, and we will have some exclusions, and there are certain involuntary doings that contains to the parasympathetic system, and those are not included in the list for good reasons. They are automatic in another sense. They are regulated by a system we don't have any control over, so you don't have to put any effort into that. And those are things, most obviously, sneezing, yawning, coughing, sighing. Those belong to the involuntary system, the parasympathetic system. And those are involuntary still at state 1. This is normal. And if you are unclear about that, you can watch a dog or a cat. You'll see them sneeze, yawn, cough. And that will be the only involuntary movements that are actually doing. We are doing a load more. Here we have an example. I'm doing something with my hand. I'm unaware of that, but I can put my attention to it, and I can instead relax the hand. You see, the hand was here. And that actually sort of tension. And that will, in a very small aspect, aggravate the ST2. And another thing, if you discover you do something, don't aggravate yourself more. You do it in a kind and a gentle way. That's very important, because we need to get here. And blaming yourself or being like overprotective parent to yourself is not good either. So you need to find a sort of middle way. And this is what Jan called lagom, a Swedish expression. And lagom means not too hard, not too soft, not too strict, but not too lax either. Somewhere in between. And of course, and I have to warn you directly, in the beginning you're going to be a bit too hard. I actually did a second thing that's not supposed to be done, scratching. That's not like coughing, this is not like yawning, this is involuntary in the group ST2. And now I need to scratch another thing. And every time I scratch, I aggravate the system. I start the system, the automatic system. What I need to do is be more equal. Don't do things involuntarily. And what will happen in the end, I will get more directed. And this is not the whole method. This is just the foundation. And so I already started with one, that was scratching. One more obvious I will show you here, that's punting or punting. Punting looked like this. This is punting. This is coming from the ST2 system. And pounding is of course aggravated even more in a person that is suffering from some sort of drug abuse. And that is actually, this is quite interesting, the Swedish expression pundare comes actually from pounding, which is quite interesting. Fiddling, I would say fiddling is a more miniature thing of pounding. Fiddling is when you have an object, usually piece of paper it could be. It's often seen when you watch somebody, a newscast reporter these days, they're turning papers. And that, you know, is fiddling. Why is that? How can you be absolutely sure that a person who works at television, having a news desk, it's not necessary for that person to look in his paper? Well, the paper today in the television desk is just decoration. They read everything from a teleprompter this day, and that's been the case the last 10-15 years. They actually leave the papers for the journalists to have something to do with their hands. Those papers are usually just filled with nonsense, or maybe could be something important, but they never read it actually. So that's been gone for 10-15 years. A teleprompter is a screen where the text is coming up. We have different caressing behavior, and I think the most common today is this one. It's actually much more common in Sweden than in other countries. I don't know why. I had a big discussion with an English friend many years ago, and he was amazed there were so many men who were sitting like this in Sweden, whereas in England it's seemed to be a bit effeminate. It didn't take him more than 5 years until he was sitting like that as well. And there are two good reasons not to sitting like this. To have a good posture when you have your legs crossed is very hard. You can do it. It's not impossible, but it's very hard. And in the beginning, it is very important to make it as easy as possible. So please refrain from crossing your legs, because if you don't do it properly, you will also strain yourself in the most affecting manner, puts a pressure on the back in a very bad way. Another thing, and that's usually when you stand, you're changing feet constantly. You're moving your weight from one feet to another feet. This is on the edge of being something uncontrollable. So I'm going to put this addendum here. It's not sure you can control it. And if you can't control it, be very lenient with yourself. I don't think I can control it, and I think that goes for maybe the majority. But there are some people that can control it, and then they can stop it. And this is the idea of having a goal-oriented rehabilitation, but not volitionally intended. We don't want to bring in the human will. So I, by will force, try to stop my leg. That will aggravate ST2. So you see what sort of moment 22 we have here. Either you're damned or you're damned. But there is a way going out there, and that's the lagom method. You go in between, and you will do a little bit too much of this, but that's okay. Next day you will do a little too little. You see how it works. By time you will gain better and better connection to your body, and as time passes by you will know what to do directly without thinking, and after time goes, you don't have to control yourself anymore. And that's the whole idea, because in ST1 we start with direction instead. Your thinking starts to make things. You just have to think it. And of course that doesn't take much effort, but you need to learn the thinking process first. That's very important. And this, I mentioned before, is called thinking in action. And this is a helping tool to not go into that alley. And I even made a little illustration about this. This, I think, is demonstrative of this. This goes with a song we often sing in Sweden around Christmas. What song could that be, Kalle?
Which song?
It's not easy to see what I'm trying to...
It's a bear that sleeps
yes.
For the winter.
Björnen sover. Well, it's a song about a bear. And we are walking around in the room like this. We did it like kids. No need to extra, not my feet. And we tried to be careful, because one in the middle was the bear. And that person pretended to be awake and hunt us. And this is the idea here. We need to go as far as we can without waking the system. The fast twitch system is easily wakened, especially when we are suffering from hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is we react too quickly and too much. It could be for sounds, it could be for stimuli of different sorts, light, it could be from internal thinking. So you see here, almost the same thing that ignites the system. It's an ignitable system, the flight and fight response. So in order not to ignite it, let the bear sleep, we need to walk like this, very softly. It's incredibly easy to ignite it, and that's a big part of the problem. We have another difficult thing here, and that's grasping with our toes. That's maybe the hardest thing to stop. And if you can't stop it, don't stop it. Very important. Grasping with our toes is this movement we do with our toes. And it means that we don't have balance, and we try to regulate that extra with the toes. It will not help though with the balance, and it actually aggravates the situation. One thing we can do, and it's very helpful, that's all type of clenching with the hands. Either this and this. This is very common today. I walked around Vårgårda before, having a conversation. I saw so many people who's walking with the fists, and I don't know if they're going to the boxing game or where they're going, but this can actually be avoidable. You can always extend your hand, except for if you are in a very stressed situation. Then you lose your ability to stop even your hands. But the hands are really affected with volition. So do take extra careful time with the hands. And see my hands here. This is how hands look that have been clenched for decades. This is not normal. Ask a person from maybe Africa or India, their hands would be like this in a relaxed state. Mine are like this. This is permanent closure of hands, makes the loins, makes the sinews shorter. That's quite interesting actually. So you can actually see on a hand that I'm a Westerner. There are people who has their hands relaxed this way. And that means more clenching, and you can extend. But don't overextend. If it takes effort, don't go all the way. Leave it in a relaxed state. This is this extra tension we want to get rid of, not the last tension. That tension can be there. That is actually a chapter for this method with the intention. And when the intention is, you just think direction out to your fingers, but don't do that now. But it's going to be so much easier. Generally, I can say everything becomes easier. The closer you get to state 1, everything becomes easier. Because, of course, the method of moving the body and regulating the body is by pure thought, not by muscular effort. Can you see the difference? Think about the astronauts. When they leave some object, when they leave it like this, I can't leave it in the sky, but imagine it's floating. The astronaut's head is going to automatically go down to the ground. That's no exception for that. What the astronaut needs to do then is by force lifting his gaze. And this is the force that starts the process. When they use muscular power to control their own bodies. That's where the problem starts. And that's why the astronaut got burned out, despite the fact these people were not exposed to any stress. Not any stress at all. And these are people also that are especially selected to be stress tolerant. These are the same people who are fighter pilots. It's not easy for them to get stressed, not even in a fighting position, like life or death position. So this, I think, was the absolute proof for Jan and some other people as well, that it has, in reality, not so much to do with actual stress. Stress is more the environment where it gets progressively worse, but it's not, as to use a Platonic phrase, the effective cause. It's not the effective cause. The effective cause is our use of the will to move our bodies. And this actually, to make it even a bit more filling, people who've been suffering from COVID, they had a severe spell of COVID. Maybe they were comatose for a time or put under sedation. When they wake up again, they are incredibly weak. They cannot move about. So they need to get going again. And what will they do when they get going again? They, instead of using their intention, their happiness for movement, they will use muscular force. And that's why we found so many people suffering from COVID, suffering also from burnout. It starts in their very fatigued states, and they go to the physiotherapist or they do it at home. They try to get out of the chair, and then they started a muscular force to get up. And we all know from our various lectures, it shouldn't take any muscular effort whatsoever to move about. You just think it and then it happens. And you see here how it passed from a healthy person getting COVID, getting so sick that that person in this fatigue state are starting to use muscular force to get up. Maybe it could be avoided by sending these people to some clinic somewhere and actually encourage them not to move about very quickly. But you know, human beings, they want to get well, they want to take care of the kids or whatever they want to do, but they don't realize in that state they shouldn't do anything. They're just too weak. So you could say we had two different models for how it could happen. They amount to the same thing. First, the astronauts, they do something muscular to stop them from looking down, for instance. That's one cause of burnout. The second one is COVID patients who start to move about, I say, too early in citation marks. They need actually to take a rest for a whole year. And we know that's not economically possible, but that's how it is, because COVID is rather, it's a very affecting disease. If you get it bad. So clenching the hands, and then you have these other things that we already have sort of societal rules against. They're already there. And we all know them. Don't pick your nose. Don't pick your ear. I would say, especially when it comes to women, don't scratch your hair. It's frowned upon. And if we can, try to refrain from doing those things, because they actually are nervous reactions and they aggravate the system. And you might say, well, it could be that I have a scratch I really want to scratch. It was an ant that bit me, or it's scratching. Yeah, it could happen. But in this case, we need to have a general rule. So even if you have a good reason to scratch yourself, you should refrain, because the body doesn't know the difference. It will know the difference once you get here. I would say all type of fiddling with the hair, especially if you have long hair, doing things with the hair. If you're a man, you have a beard. I've seen it's very frequent people doing things with a beard. Or a piece of garment. Could we put the pause there? Or a moustache. All those things will be perceived the system as a case of stress. And you wonder, I am not doing that because I'm stressed. And the thing is, the system doesn't know the difference. The system can't know the difference. And this is the Klein-Bartle logic. Do stressful thing, and the body perceives it to be stressful. And we know that to be a fact. If you ask people to play stressful for a whole month, they will actually get themselves in a bad state. And it will take years to heal that. What we do on the outside affects the inside immediately. More complicated type of fiddling is complicated movements that might be doing. And I think these have an interesting connection I won't go into. That's called today OCD. And those are actually involuntary movements that are so complicated they actually look voluntary. I'm just going to mention them. These are not part of the curriculum here. But one thing is like washing your hands 20 times a day. That looks voluntary actually. But it's caused by this system as well. Isn't it odd? So we can actually do very complicated things that is based on ST2, flight and fight response. So in some cases, what is involuntary is not always transparent. You need to figure out. But of course, in a way, those things could look so easy to stop, but they're not. So that's a little quagmire I won't go into. And here you're going to get a very good tip, I think, and that is one shortcut to get to this system, because we are constantly handling objects of different sorts, implements, tools, and our human connection to our tools also decides the quality of the action. So, very helpful it is to treat the objects around you with a caring attitude. And this is actually what Heidegger called care, Sorge. And Sorge means all of your reality. It doesn't only mean objects, it means relationships you do, like for instance, going to buy things or doing things at the bank, putting in new money, all sorts of relation. Put some care into it, Sorge, because that's going to help ST1. ST2 doesn't know Sorge. You can personify ST2 as a very crude person that do everything brutally, because this is brutality. This is the fight and flight response. But the opposites also hold. If you're already here and you start to do things with your hands, with your relation, with your objects, also other people, in a more gentle manner, the system will perceive that as you are more harmonious, and the system will go over to ST1. So we are not for handen in the world. What we do is something that's already in the world. So our relation or our response to the world is very important. So do treat everything with utmost care. Take care of your things and be gentle with them, because in this gentleness is the more precise, caring thinking of ST1. And if you don't believe me, look at the movie with Fred Astaire. When he dances around, he grabs objects sometimes, and of course his dancing partner, whether it's Gene Kelly or whoever it is, he's very careful. And I had the pleasure to dance one with a professional dancer, and you can feel the care. It's not a soft care, it's a decisive care, but it's still very precise care. When you dance, you get softer only by dancing with that person. And all my faults, I can't dance to save my life. That's impossible for me. But in the hands of her, I could actually dance for a while. And she managed to guide me in some way. And that is actually exactly what ST1 does. Look at good athletes, look at people who are very good at their skilled things. Maybe somebody who's working well with a paintbrush or something like that. You will see their whole body responding to the environment in a most caring and precise way. And my idea here today is put precision into your do, and you will help this movement process. This is an extra add-on. And we need to look at tradition. What should we do? Because we have a knowledge, as I mentioned before, there's already things that tries to stop us from scratching our hairs. There is a good reason for that. But it's also a good reason for different tradition how we treat things. You don't leave the pen without its cap, for instance. You care about it, and you put it down gently. By doing that, specifically preparatory. This one, this is a flight and fight response. It doesn't prepare anything. Prepare, and this one will turn into this one. This one jumps directly into the action. It wants to do things directly. For obvious reasons. If somebody's hunting me with a knife, I need to run. I'm not going to prepare myself to fix my clothes. Can I actually run around town like this with a dirty jacket and everything? This guy is hunting me with a knife or a hammer. No, I just run. Do you understand? We have a mechanism to help us survive. Let it be what it is. But we can also convince it by handling things voluntary with care. We're going to convince that system, the bear, to sleep a little bit more often. And the good thing, and this is actually a very important thing, in our society where this flight and fight response is constantly aggravated, do you know what happens when there is a real danger? When there is a fire, for instance, or a boat is going down for water, when we actually need this, when we need to stop preparing, when we need to just run or fight, it doesn't work anymore. And that's a very hilarious or sad aspect of the whole thing. The flight and fight response doesn't work among modern Western society. So by repeatedly misusing this habit and using it for all nonsensical things, oh, will I be able to catch the train? Oh, will I get to race this month? I am actually destroying the bear. The bear won't help you anymore. And it's been some research I looked into that actually shows that this tendency could actually stop us from surviving the next world war or something like that. Our instincts are getting debauched, to use a term that Frederick Matthias Alexander was using. Another good way of handling the whole thing is, for instance, I think this is a very good tip. If you're opening a letter, how do you open it? Look here. The flight and fight response is very anxious to find out what's in the letter. Is it my death sentence? Is this the result from the doctors going to tell me I'm terminally ill or something? Or is it the bill I forgot about? This is the flight and fight response. What happens? When you open the letter, you tear it open. Do use a knife. Do it with care. Every time you prepare something in a fine detail, you are activating ST1. So there's a good reason there is actually such a thing as a paper knife. It is to stop us from going directly to the things. And paper knives are actually a relic from olden days, from the 19th century. And I think it was for a good use. And I think it's a very great part in Western tradition to neglect the world. We don't care about the world. Think about what you see in East Asia, for instance. You see people caring a lot about what they are doing. Whatever they are proposing to do, they put a lot of planning into it. And here we come into another detail, and that's, could you stand still, please? Planning is also something the flight and fight response doesn't want to do. Why is that? Well, if you are in a horrible situation, let's say you're a caveman and you're hunted by these saber-toothed tigers, you just want to escape. There's no time for planning next week's celebration of the lunar eclipse or something like that. Every planning goes out of the board. Plan. Make plans for things. And I'm not talking about long-time plans. No. I'm talking about plans within the hour, within the day. That's the most important time schedule. I would say 1 day, possibly 2 days, tops, preferably hours. Every time you plan something, you do something with your body, that is planning. That's the idea. We need to retrain the body. Do planning with your body. Arrange things. And I would say all the advice of Jordan Peterson, I think he made the book 13 Advice to Live a Better Life. All those advices are sorts of planning. He wants to show us the olden ways of doing things. But indirectly, he's actually pointing to the ST1. Make your bed, for instance. Shave, which I forgot today or yesterday. There are many different things. And it's not what you do, the result that counts. It's the action planning. And that is actually a very interesting connection to thinking. Because what we do with our body, our action, is our thinking. And we know today we do not plan thinkingly as we used to do. And we mentioned that before. All the big giants when it comes to intellectual life are disappearing today. Why is not Shakespeare read anymore at the curriculum in the primary in England, for instance? Well, the reason is it's too complicated for the fight and flight response. Because that thinking cannot hold complicated story at the same time. It can only have short bits. And I would actually propose here, and that's what I started thinking about just yesterday, there is general thinking today that the electronic world with mails and SMS and all that, they have gravely made our attention span smaller and smaller and smaller. But I don't think that's the main reason. I think rather we already had that by the start of the 19th century, something that Friedrich Matthias Alexander noted. And this is just this thing playing out its game. So I think the electronic devices are more of an excuse. That's not the effective course. They will engrave in the things, I can admit to that. But I don't believe they are the starters, because they cannot be the starters. If you are in this situation, there's no engravement, almost no engravement, that can change you from this balanced state. You are in single attractor. Any sort of, how do you say, molestation, disturbance, noise, will make this stronger. And that's the amazing thing. Once you are here, all the disturbance, it doesn't matter if there are emails or SMSs, if you're completely stable, the stability dominates. And it's a little bit like these maelstroms you found in the stream. The more disturbance that come into the maelstrom, the stronger it gets. And I think this makes a lot more sense than saying that electronic devices took us off course. Naturally, when we are already in this state, electronic devices and all that stuff will worsen the state, so we should refrain from it. I'm more talking about the effective cause here. What actually started the whole thing? And I don't think it was the electronic devices. But it could be a good thing not to wake the bear with different things like alarms, for instance, Hans. And to end the whole thing and making it a bit philosophical, I would say that Zuhanden is our life. We normally in the Western world, we don't think that Zuhanden is important, what we actually do with things. It's like the world is not so interesting. We have bigger goals than the world. And I say, as Heidegger, if you put the Zuhanden, your tools, your Zug, I think they're called Zug in Heidegger, they're called Zug. That's actually the equivalent of tyg in Swedish. The Zug, if you put those into your system, the philosophical part will grow. It will not diminish it. I think we are so stuck in this partitioning thing. I think if I starting to do mundane things like going to the bank and make an account or whatever, or regulating my pants, that will diminish my possibility of reaching my higher philosophical life goals, career goals, religious goals, whatever goals you have that are very long term. On the contrary, as Heidegger said, this will help because they are apparently distinct and different, but in another way they are complementary, just like soul and body are complementary. And we need to put that complementarity in again. And this is just the same thing as we letting the body be closer to the mind. That will strengthen both the mind and the body. And when we're getting to this place once again, our thinking, whether it's intellectual or mundane, it will be much, much stronger. Because they are just like two sides of a coin. They are completely distinct. Here you have tail and here you have heads. Heads and tails are two different sides of exactly the same coin. And this is the mysterious thing that both Frederick Matthias Alexander pointed out, that we learn from quantum physics, that we also add in chaos theory to, and that Wittgenstein tried to help us poor deluded people understand. It's the same thing at the same time. It could be completely distinct as well, completely separable. It's a mystery, it's a riddle, but the true thing is, the more we care about the mundane world, the more we can get into the sky. And isn't that amazing? And I think it's just about time for me to buy some cookies. I say thank you very much, and I ask that you enjoy your life, have a good time. Bye bye.
Thank you.